Why doesn't Dumbledore tell Harry about Scarcrux in Half-Blood Prince? Dumbledore's plan for Severus Snape to tell Harry at the last moment just leaves too much to chance. What if Snape dies before he's able to tell Harry that he's a Horcrux? In fact, Snape almost does die before he's able to pass that information along. Dumbledore was gambling so much just to keep Harry alive and happier for just a little longer. It's clear that Professor Dumbledore underestimated Harry. He believes that if Harry was told any earlier, then quote, how could he have the strength to do what was necessary? And yes, he wanted to spare Harry this great burden for as long as he could, but still too much is left to chance. Why couldn't Dumbledore just give Harry a memory or a magical letter that explained Scarcrux, but forbid him from viewing said memory until only Nagini's Horcrux was left to destroy? Clearly, Dumbledore had developed a soft spot for Harry and almost messed up big time. What do you think? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Why does Dumbledore send Harry on a quest to find the Deathly Hallows? I thought we were supposed to be hunting Horcruxes. It turns out that acquiring all of the Hallows might not actually make you immortal anyway. If Dumbledore wanted Harry to have the Deathly Hallows, then all he had to do was give them to Harry during the events of the Half-Blood Prince. Harry already has the cloak, Dumbledore is dying and is the master of the Elder Wand, and they've just acquired the Resurrection Stone. Instead, Dumbledore sends Harry on a philosophical quest. He wants Harry to understand the moral of the story. He wants Harry to understand that the only way to win against death is to accept it, not resist it. Sure, these are powerful magical items that might help him along the way, but ultimately, Dumbledore wants to prepare Harry for his inevitable Forbidden Forest showdown with Lord Voldemort. Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Why didn't Dumbledore appear when Harry used the Resurrection Stone? Perhaps Dumbledore could not appear because he himself had not moved on to the afterlife. The Resurrection Stone brings loved ones back from the dead. Dumbledore later appears to Harry in a place somewhere between life and death. Maybe he was intentionally waiting for Harry. He knew that Harry would have to die in order for him to complete his task. He also knew that Harry would be tethered to life and thus have the chance to return instead of going on to the afterlife. Who else was going to give Harry that information? It's also important to note that Harry had just learned that Dumbledore was raising him as a lamb for slaughter. Harry's feelings towards Dumbledore are very conflicted as he enters the Forbidden Forest. So even if Dumbledore was able to appear, it's likely that Harry would not have wanted his former headmaster's presence. What do you think? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Why does Dumbledore withhold Harry's access to the Resurrection Stone until the very end? Dumbledore states, quote, I too sought a way to conquer death. I only feared that you would fail as I have failed. I have known for some time that you are the better man. Professor Dumbledore wanted to arm Harry with everything he would need to face Voldemort, but at the same time he wanted to prolong Harry's life as much as possible, without ultimately sacrificing the quest. Dumbledore does not want Harry to have the Hallows and forget to hunt the Horcruxes. He wants him to have access to this particular Hallow at exactly the right time. Dumbledore has already witnessed a younger Harry dwelling on dreams and forgetting to live. He couldn't risk Harry completely losing himself by spending time with his lost loved ones. So in this situation, it makes sense that Dumbledore would withhold Harry's access to the Resurrection Stone until the very end. What do you think? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Why does Dumbledore hate the Dementors? Or does he fear them? It's pretty clear from both the books and the movies that Albus Dumbledore does not like Dementors. We are told over and over again that he thinks they're evil and that the Ministry shouldn't ally itself with such creatures. During The Prisoner of Azkaban, Dumbledore is extremely upset that the Ministry of Magic is allowing the Dementors to patrol Hogwarts. Of course, no one really likes Dementors. It's out of necessity that Cornelius Fudge has them patrolling. But during Harry's Quidditch match against Hufflepuff, Dumbledore is furious at the Dementors for invading the pitch. The school has never seen him this angry. Dumbledore seems to always keep his cool. He keeps his cool when there's a troll in the dungeon. He keeps his cool when the Chamber of Secrets is opened and students are being petrified. Yet he loses it when the Dementors interrupt Quidditch. But maybe there's something more here. Perhaps when Dumbledore is near Dementors, he relives the duel that led to Ariana Dumbledore's death. This is one of Dumbledore's darkest moments. When he looks into the Mirror of Erised, he sees his family well and whole. Dumbledore has always feared that he was the one that dealt the final blow that killed his sister. If Dementors can force him to relive that experience, then it makes sense as to why he both hates and fears them. Is Dumbledore any better than Snape? Why does the fandom give Dumbledore a pass for plotting to subjugate Muggles with Grindelwald and not offer the same pass to Snape, who was plotting to subjugate Muggles with Voldemort? What's the difference? They were both in their youth and both misguided. In both situations, it took the death of someone close to them to bring them back to their senses. Dumbledore lost Ariana and Snape lost Lily. Dumbledore and Grindelwald were of similar age, similar power, and more equals than anything else. Whereas Snape was abused, bullied, and lured towards the dark arts by someone far more older and more powerful. Hermione excuses Dumbledore's youthful trip to the dark side by saying he later changed. He grew up and figured things out. He deserves a second chance. As a matter of fact, Dumbledore was the headmaster at Hogwarts during the time that Snape was being mistreated. Did he ever offer any help or guidance? Or in his mind, was Snape just another lost cause, like the rest of the students who were sorted into House Slytherin? What do you think? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Did Dumbledore see a time-traveling Harry and Hermione before he meets them in the hospital wing? On the day of Buckbeak's execution, Dumbledore goes to comfort Hagrid. Somehow, at precisely the right moment, Dumbledore starts stalling for a rescue rescue attempt. He knows that Ron, Hermione, and Harry are all very fond of Hagrid. He stalls long enough for the present time Harry, Ron, and Hermione to vacate Hagrid's hut and potentially rescue Buckbeak, but they don't attempt the rescue. But when Dumbledore steps outside, he sees that someone has rescued Buckbeak. He probably assumes that it was our brave trio. Later that day, Dumbledore interviews Sirius Black, probably uses legitimacy on him, and then goes to the hospital wing to check on our trio. During that meeting, he says, quote, "If you succeed tonight, more than one innocent life may be spared." Why would he say that if he believed that the present time trio had already rescued Buckbeak? Clearly, somewhere along the way, he started to notice the effects of time traveling. Perhaps he caught a glimpse of Hermione and Harry riding Buckbeak just as he was leaving Sirius. But somehow, Dumbledore believes the time-traveling Hermione is responsible for saving Buckbeak earlier that day. What do you think? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. How powerful is Professor Dumbledore? Albus Dumbledore is considered by many to be the most powerful wizard of all time. This beloved Hogwarts headmaster is truly benevolent, wise, and understood magic in a way that very few were able to match. He had a calm, collected, and polite demeanor, and was quite fond of knitting patterns. Yet ironically, this peaceful, understanding wizard was the only wizard that Lord Voldemort feared. He was also the only wizard powerful enough to defeat the famous Grindelwald. Albus Dumbledore was a duelist of extraordinary and almost unrivaled skill. So what made Dumbledore so powerful? Yes, he was gifted in magical aptitude. Yes, he had mastered all forms of wandless and non-verbal magic. And yes, he was a master in the defense against the dark arts, transfiguration, charms, and the list goes on. But what truly separates Dumbledore from the other great wizards is his ability to love. He understood the nature of love and the magic associated with it. For me, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, Chief Warlock of the Wizened Gaunt, Supreme Mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards, Order of Merlin First Class for Grand Sorcery, deserves a power scale score of 11 out of 10. Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. What was Dumbledore's backup plan? Dumbledore's original plan is for Harry to walk into the Forbidden Forest and willingly sacrifice himself for the wizarding community, and return alive and well to later face the Dark Lord. But on her website, J.K. Rowling once explained that there was no way for Dumbledore to know for sure that Harry would survive the killing curse by Voldemort. He hopes that Lily Potter's blood sacrifice will continue to tether him to life. But if it doesn't, then according to the prophecy, Dumbledore knew that Harry at least has the power to vanquish the Dark Lord. If Harry's sacrifice in the Forbidden Forest would have led to his death, then at least the wizarding world would have gained a sacrificial magic protection against Voldemort, and then Severus Snape could use the Elder Wand to defeat Lord Voldemort in single combat, thus avenging both Lily and Harry. What do you think? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. What were Dumbledore's actual intentions for the Elder Wand? There seemingly is a contradiction here. While in limbo, Harry says, quote, "If you planned your death with Snape, you meant him to end up with the Elder Wand, didn't you?" To which Dumbledore replies, "I admit that was my intention." But then later in the final duel, Harry contradicts that by saying, quote, "Snape never beat Dumbledore. Dumbledore's death was planned between them. Dumbledore intended to die undefeated, the wand's last true master. So which is it?" Perhaps Dumbledore wasn't entirely sure what would happen, but either way, his intention was to create a trap by lulling Voldemort into falsely believing he has an unbeatable wand. But if the wand's allegiance would have gone to Snape, then it would have gone to the wizard most capable of defeating Voldemort in a duel. What do you think? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Would the Elder Wand ever allow itself to be rendered ownerless? Dumbledore believes that by planning his own death and defeat, the power of the Elder Wand would finally be broken. He wanted to die the last master of the Elder Wand. If that didn't work, then he wanted to make sure that the one who defeated him would be able to pass ownership of the Elder Wand to Harry Potter at the right time. Either way, it didn't work. But what if Snape did defeat Dumbledore, but the defeat was planned out and premeditated? Would the Elder Wand view that as a defeat, or would it continue to be loyal to Dumbledore in his grave? At the end of the Deathly Hallows, Harry states, quote, "If I die a natural death like Ignotus, the Elder Wand's power will be broken. The previous master will never have been defeated. That will be the end of it." Are Harry and Dumbledore correct? No way. For all intents and purposes, the Elder Wand has a mind of its own. In fact, all wands seem to have their own selfish intentions. Remember, the wand chooses the wizard. So what do you think? Why didn't Dumbledore just give Harry Potter the Sword of Gryffindor in secret? By giving the sword to Harry in his last will and testament, Dumbledore draws a lot of attention to the sword from both the Ministry of Magic and Voldemort simultaneously. But he has his reasons. Dumbledore knows that the sword can destroy Horcruxes. He also knows that Lord Voldemort has a fascination with important Hogwarts heirlooms. Prior to his death, Dumbledore either acquires or creates a fake sword, and hides the real sword behind his own portrait in the headmaster's office. Dumbledore assumes that if the fake sword is in jeopardy of being stolen by Harry Potter or his friends, then Voldemort will relocate that fake sword to a secret hiding place, most likely to a hiding place where he also keeps one or more of his Horcruxes. Snape would then be able to secretly inform Harry Potter about one of Voldemort's secret hideaways. Of course, it doesn't go down exactly like that, but still a genius move on Dumbledore's part. Dumbledore Dumbledore correctly assumes that an artifact of this value would be hidden in the same place that Voldemort might hide one or more of his Horcruxes.
How does Dumbledore's Deluminator work? Yes, it can de-illuminate a room and then again re-illuminate it, but in the Deathly Hallows we learned that it has additional powers. The wielder is able to hear when certain people speak his or her name. While using the Deluminator, Ron was able to hear Hermione whispering his name. Activate the Deluminator and disapparate directly to her location. What a fascinating device. Perhaps Dumbledore was using the same method during earlier events. This would allow for Dumbledore to keep an ear out for Harry using his name during times of peril. Enchanting names in the Harry Potter series is a very advanced form of magic. After the Ministry of Magic has fallen, he who must not be named, aka Lord Voldemort, or you know who, made his name taboo in an effort to locate individuals loyal to Harry Potter who were daring enough to use his name aloud. So what do you think? Was Dumbledore listening in on Harry, Ron, and Hermione as they used his name throughout the series? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content.
Why didn't Professor Dumbledore destroy the Elder Wand? We know that he intended for himself to be its last owner, but how certain was he that the wand would not interpret his self-arranged death as a defeat? Even if the Elder Wand is rendered ownerless, Ollivander is sure of one thing: the wand chooses the wizard, and the Elder Wand recognizes power. Dumbledore didn't trust anyone else to master this Hallow, so if there is any doubt in his mind, why not just destroy it? Perhaps there is no way to destroy it. The second Hallow was the Resurrection Stone found in Marvolo Gaunt's ring. Voldemort turned this ring into a Horcrux, and we know that in order to destroy a Horcrux, the object containing the soul fragment needed to be damaged beyond any and all repair. Yet the Resurrection Stone still worked. One might argue that the Horcrux was just the ring and not the stone. The third Horcrux was the Cloak of Invisibility, which would not fade with age. It had a self-preserving quality and provided its wearer with everlasting protection. So if the Elder Wand can't be destroyed, like it was in the film, then Dumbledore attempted the next best thing: render it ownerless or allow it to pass to Severus Snape. Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Did you know that Sybil Trelawney predicted Dumbledore's death? During Prisoner of Azkaban, Dumbledore sets a table for 12 at Christmas. Dumbledore rises from his place at the dining table, offering his seat to Professor Trelawney. She replies, "I dare not, headmaster. If I join the table, we shall be 13. Nothing could be more unlucky. Never forget that when 13 dine together, the first to rise will be the first to die." There are clearly 12 people already seated, but what she didn't realize is that Scabbers was in Ron's pocket, making Peter Pettigrew the 13th person. With 13 people at the table, Dumbledore is the first to rise, and the first to die later in the series. What else did Professor Trelawney correctly predict? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Does Dumbledore use Felix Felicis before his duel with Grindelwald? If Grindelwald has the Elder Wand and is its true master, then he would be really hard to beat. It seems like Liquid Luck would be a good thing to have prior to any duel. During the Half-Blood Prince, Ron, Hermione, and Ginny split the potion between themselves and effectively use it to dodge Death Eater curses, many of which were unforgivable curses. It's also very possible that Grindelwald is not the true master of the Elder Wand, as it is very fickle when it comes to loyalty. Tina Goldstein clearly disarms Grindelwald, making her the master of the Elder Wand. One simply had to disarm the master of the wand, either by knocking it out of their hand with a spell or by grabbing it out of their hand. It did not even have to be the actual Elder Wand. You simply disarm the master of the Elder Wand regardless of which wand they're currently using. All in all, it's probably cooler if Dumbledore doesn't rely on Liquid Luck, but it is an interesting idea. Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Why was Dumbledore able to see Harry under the Cloak of Invisibility? It's true that the cloak was superior to other cloaks in terms of durability and longevity, but it's also true that certain methods of magical detection were able to reveal the Witcher Wizard despite the cloak's power. Aleister Moody's magical eye, the Marauder's map, and the human presence revealing spell were able to perceive the presence of a witch or wizard concealed by the cloak. Some creatures were also able to sense a wizard's presence by methods other than sight, such as Dementors and Nagini. Albus Dumbledore was using a nonverbal, human presence revealing spell to locate Harry or anyone else concealed by magical means. And also, he's Dumbledore. He knows things. Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Did Dumbledore ask Mrs Figg to lie?
Do as I say.
During the Order of the Phoenix, Harry and Dudley are attacked by Dementors. Harry performs magic in front of his Muggle cousin, which is a big no-no, and leads to an expulsion hearing at the Ministry of Magic. Dumbledore knew that Fudge wanted to make an example of Harry. He also knew that the whizzing Gaunt might side with Fudge unless he intervened with a defense for Harry. Dumbledore's physical presence at Harry's side was probably more than enough to bring these members back to their senses, but Dumbledore always has a backup plan. Thus enter Mrs Figg. She's a squib. Muggles can't see Dementors, but can squibs. According to Mrs Figg, they can. But can they? In the books, she slips up a few times. She noted that they were running instead of gliding. Harry thinks she's probably only ever seen a picture of a Dementor. Once she's completed her story, Fudge asks her if that's what she saw, and she replies, That's what happened. Clearly, Dumbledore prepped Mrs Figg and showed her what a Dementor looks like. He knew full well that she wouldn't be able to truthfully testify that she had actually seen a Dementor. This is another bit of evidence pointing towards a morally gray Dumbledore. Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Does Dumbledore kill Hokey the House Elf and Morfin Gaunt in order to cover his tracks? Movie watchers won't get it, and book readers might be offended. But how risky would it be if Hokey and Morfin later encounter Lord Voldemort and they told the Dark Lord that Dumbledore was on to Voldy's secret? We know that Tom Riddle was creating and hiding Horcruxes from 1942 until 1981, and then some. But Dumbledore doesn't know exactly what Tom Riddle is up to. He does know that he's up to something. Dumbledore is extremely smart, and Tom Riddle is extremely good at covering his tracks. Tom Riddle then vanishes for 10 years. During those 10 years, Dumbledore starts to investigate. In order to find more clues, he interrogates both Hokey the House Elf and Morfin Gaunt. Both of those individuals die shortly after Dumbledore's interrogation. Now, both individuals were very old and fragile, so perhaps they died of old age, or perhaps their fragile near-death state was the perfect opportunity for Dumbledore to cover his own tracks. What do you think? Do you know all 9 theories on how Dumbledore defeated Grindelwald? Number 3, Dumbledore and Grindelwald still love each other. I thought I'd bring this into the conversation just because people find this relationship between Albus and Gellert fascinating. And essentially, if they both have feelings for each other during the duel, then perhaps that would negate the power advantage of the Elder Wand. But I only see that being the case if Gellert were still romantically in love with Albus. If Gellert still does have those feelings and Albus does not, then the wand would perceive Albus as the stronger wizard. Actually, even if Albus still does reciprocate those romantic feelings, then the Elder Wand would just allow both wizards to duel each other on skill alone, and then side with the winner. Unless we reverse all of that and say that the power of love is stronger than anything else, then you could say that the Elder Wand would view Albus and his understanding of love as the stronger of the two. J.K. Rowling does tell us that Gellert was a bit of a user and more fascinated by Albus rather than romantically in love with him. Did Dumbledore ever actually trust Hagrid with his life? In the very first chapter of the very first book, Professor McGonagall says, quote, "You think it wise to trust Hagrid with something as important as this?" To which Dumbledore replies, quote, "I would trust Hagrid with my life." One would think that this foreshadows a time where we'd see Dumbledore put his life into Hagrid's hands, but we never really see that happen. During the Harry Potter series, Dumbledore's life has only ever really been in danger 4 times, once during the Order of the Phoenix, and 3 times during the Half-Blood Prince. Instead of Dumbledore trusting Hagrid with his life, he trusts Severus Snape. But we do know of a 5th time where Dumbledore's life was in danger, and it's possible that Rubeus Hagrid was involved. This of course is during his famous duel with Gellert Grindelwald. Hagrid was expelled in the year 1943, and Dumbledore had his famous duel with Grindelwald in 1945. It's possible that Hagrid, with his giant's blood, saved Dumbledore's life by throwing himself in front of a harmful curse. This wouldn't be the first time that an expelled Hogwarts student aided Dumbledore in his fight against Grindelwald. What do you think? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Did Dumbledore intend for Harry to face Quirrellmort during his first year at Hogwarts? The Sorcerer's Stone has protections that seem too perfectly designed for the trio to pass in their first year. Moreover, they're designed in such a way that only one person at a time can reach the Mirror of Erised, which would keep a potential Ron or Hermione out of harm's way. The final protection only has enough potion for one person to drink and move forward. Dumbledore clearly has set up a training course for Harry and his friends to accelerate their magical skills and grow their confidence. He knew that one day they would face down the Dark Lord, possibly on their own. Quote, "I knew not whether it would be 10, 20, or 50 years before he returned. I was sure he would do so, and I was sure too that he would not rest until he killed Harry Potter." Dumbledore knows that Harry is not really in danger, and that the stone itself wasn't in any danger from Quirrellmort. At the end of the book, Harry himself even suggests that Dumbledore set this entire thing up. Quote, "He's a funny man, Dumbledore. I think he sort of wanted to give me a chance. I reckon he had a pretty good idea we were going to try, and instead of stopping us, he taught us enough to help. I don't think it was an accident that he let me find out how the mirror worked. It's almost like he thought I had the right to face Voldemort if I could." Did Dumbledore know that Voldemort would kill Snape to get the Elder Wand? Dumbledore definitely understood that one day Voldemort might come seeking the Elder Wand. He knew that Voldemort's wand had just been recently defeated by Harry's own wand, and that Voldemort himself would be looking for a way to circumvent that protection. Dumbledore's plan was to be the last true master of the Elder Wand. He prearranges his death with Snape so that he remains unbeaten. But surely Dumbledore would have warned Snape that Voldemort might one day go looking for the last true master of the Elder Wand. Voldemort doesn't know that this is a prearranged death. He believes that Severus killed Dumbledore because he's a loyal Death Eater. So why didn't Dumbledore tell Snape that he was actually killing the master of the Elder Wand and putting a very large target on his own back? Maybe Dumbledore wasn't sure that this would work as he intended. Could you imagine if Severus Snape was the true master of the Elder Wand and he knew it. He might have outright dueled the Dark Lord for killing Lily Evans. Yet Dumbledore's plans do depend on Snape. He intended Snape to be alive to pass on crucial information to Harry at exactly the right time. So yes, Dumbledore does know that he's putting a target on Snape, and no, he doesn't give him a heads up. What do you think? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content. Did you know that Albus Dumbledore may have met Gellert Grindelwald earlier than you thought? The Harry Potter series tells us that Albus was 17 years old when he was formally introduced to Gellert. But upon further examination of the series, it seems very likely that these two great wizards met during the Triwizard Tournament of 1892. According to Goblet of Fire, the last Triwizard Tournament was just over 100 years ago, so a tournament in 1892 is possible. Interestingly, during the year 1892, Albus and Gellert would be first-year students at their respective schools. Even more interesting is that our character in Hogwarts Legacy would be entering their 7th year, and could be selected as the Hogwarts Triwizard Champion. How cool would it be to win eternal glory with Albus Dumbledore and Gellert Grindelwald watching from the stands? Be sure to follow for more Harry Potter content.